Welcome back to the channel. My name's Rebecca, I'm 45 years old and I used to suffer from multiple sclerosis, but I no longer experience any of the symptoms since starting the carnivore diet just over 2.5 years ago. In today's video, I wanted to do an overview of how the carnivore diet has changed my life, because sometimes it's hard for even me to believe that I really was that ill, because you kind of get used to your everyday life and your new normal pretty quickly, and sometimes I almost forget just how bad I was struggling. So when I was first diagnosed, I was 36 years old. It was in 2016, so just about 10 years ago now. And at the time I was in the final year of my PhD and I was living in Manchester in England. So I was, working really hard on my career and I was in the full flow of life. And it was a complete shock to suddenly have my first relapse, which was the nerve failing in my eye. And that led to the onset of symptoms, which were disabling. So I spent the next few years basically sofa bound, and every single day I would basically struggle to get through the day, just to simply get my body through the day, because I was experiencing so many different aches and pains and nausea and exhaustion, but exhaustion that I'd never experienced before, something that's beyond the realms of normal. It's called post-exertional malaise. It's when you exert yourself just a little bit, the fatigue comes and hits you 10 times worse. And it's more than just tiredness, it's sickness, it's weakness, and it's a total inability to do the most simple things. So, for example, taking a shower was a big deal. I would struggle to stand in the shower. I would be on my hands and knees, and afterwards I would have to rest for about an hour after the shower. So it would be a good day if I managed to have a shower. And I had a little dog, my little dog Yasmin. I made it my everyday goal to walk her, and that would be just around the corner in the local park. And that was what my day would revolve around, building up my energy to be able to walk the dog and then come home. And I would usually be too tired to cook, so I would have toast or cereal for dinner. There was a time that I was so ill I was using a wheelchair to get from the kitchen to the living room. It was too tiring. I actually had to move house because the house I lived in Manchester had too many stairs in it. It was too exhausting going up and down the stairs, and the bathroom was upstairs, so because I had bladder issues, urgency, sometimes I wouldn't make it. So it was a very undignified time. There were lots of different symptoms. Multiple sclerosis is different for different people. What was most debilitating for me was the fatigue, but also the cognitive element was very debilitating for me and distressing, because I had been pursuing a high-level career in academia, and now I couldn't string sentences together. I couldn't follow conversations. I couldn't process basic information or instructions. I could still drive, I could do the mechanics of driving, but I would get very tired and overwhelmed when there was lots of traffic, and then I would lose my way even if I knew the area. So it was starting to become dangerous to drive. And that was my independence. That was something that mattered a lot to me. So I could go on. I mean, it was the hardest time of my life, bar none. It was something I struggle to explain, something I sort of struggle to remember, because it's like with trauma, often that impacts your memory. Looking back on it, you can't clearly remember it. So it's like every single day was the same. And I just have this notion that it was just the sofa, and the exhaustion and the fear, the frustration, the grief of the loss of my career, the loss of my identity, the fogginess of my brain, the inability to find simple words. I would be so frustrated with myself because, the word dishwasher would just leave my vocabulary, and I would struggle to find it when I was mid-sentence, and then I would lose the flow of my sentence, and and the friendships that I lost because I couldn't invest in them anymore. I couldn't show up in those friendships anymore the way I used to, and then so those friendships disappeared, and so I was very, very isolated. This was a time of my life that I would rather forget. it also serves to help me value and appreciate and be grateful for what I have now, because I am not that person anymore. And the thing is, when I was in that state, all the doctors were telling me, this is the best it'll ever be. You can just about get around. You're not completely reliant on carers. You can use your arms, you can use your legs. You might be too tired to, but they're there and they're moving. You know, that it will only get worse from here on in. It's forever. It's incurable. We can't do anything about your symptoms. The medication you're taking will only give you side effects and they won't take away your symptoms. It might slow the progression of the disease up to a certain percentage in the future. So keep taking it, but you won't feel any better. You won't feel the difference. In fact, you'll feel worse because of the side effects. So I was injecting every day, and that in itself was quite distressing. I had lots of skin reactions and like kind of deformities on my hip, like dents in my hip. I still have them from where I was injecting, and it was very painful. Not the injection itself, but the stuff in your body. It's like battery acid every single day. Gosh, it was unreal. I'm sure many of you watching who have chronic illnesses will be able to relate to some extent, because it's hard to relate to if you haven't had a chronic illness, especially when it's an invisible illness. It's hard to imagine what that person's experiencing. You have to take them at their word, and often people didn't. So that was like a layer of trauma that wasn't part of my physical symptoms, was trying to express what I was experiencing and not being heard, not being believed. I had a counsellor through the MS Society, and I remember saying to her, how can you scream so loud and no one hears you? I remember saying that to her. I felt like I was no longer in the human race. So it's hard for me to overstate what my life was like when I was at my worst with multiple sclerosis. But I somehow found myself on a journey towards reclaiming my health. And guess what? I got there. It's unbelievable to me, yet it's completely true. So my journey towards reclaiming my health began by stopping taking the MS medication. Now, I don't advocate this. It's not my place to tell people whether they should take MS medication or not. I'm not a qualified doctor. I don't give medical advice. I just share my experience. And what happened was, rightly or wrongly, one day I just decided I can't do this anymore. I'm going to have the day off. So I didn't inject one day. And that turned into a week. And that turned into never injecting Copaxone ever again. And it wasn't something I did in protest. I just reached a point where I couldn't do it again. I couldn't do it anymore. And nobody stepped in to put me on any other medication, because my MS nurse had kind of disappeared on me. I don't really clearly remember how it all went down, but I just decided to stop, and I stopped, and that's all that happened. And then not long after that, I discovered that my environment was having an impact on my state of being. And that revelation is something that I have talked about in previous videos, but often people will disbelieve me. So take it with a pinch of salt if you wish, but this is truly my experience. I discovered that I was sensitive, had become sensitive to Wi-Fi radiation and mobile phone, cell phone radiation. So when I discovered that, I got rid of my router, and I didn't. I switched off the Wi-Fi element of the router, and I got a wired connection into the router, and I started switching my phone off overnight and putting it on airplane mode during the day, except when I wanted to use it. So I just changed that about my environment, and that gave me kind of like an air pocket to breathe and to think, and it really did have a noticeable difference in my physical and mental capacities. When I discovered that, I came to the conclusion that I could no longer stay in the city. I was now living in Birmingham, which was my hometown, but I was very isolated. Even though I lived in the middle of the second biggest city in England, I was completely isolated because of my illness. So I thought, what difference does it make if I'm in the middle of Birmingham or up a mountain? So I decided to move to Spain, up a mountain. And I had to go to northern Spain because with MS you have a heat intolerance. That's a very common symptom with MS, is heat intolerance. So I thought, well, in that case it has to be northern Spain, which has got a more moderate climate. Still warmer than the UK, but not quite as hot as, you know, Andalusia or somewhere like that. And mountainous. Asturias, which is where I went, is a mountainous area. So I moved just before the pandemic, just before the Brexit deadline. I moved to a mountain in Asturias in northern Spain. And that change of environment was a massive part of my health journey. It has been a massive part of my health journey. And it's been really interesting because it's put me on the road to discovering the carnivore diet. Personally, I think that it paved the way for the diet to have an even stronger impact. So I've come to believe that environment is a big part of the picture. I do think moving to a natural environment and a cleaner air, spring water, you know, sunshine, all of that has been a massive part of my healing journey. And my journey led to me discovering a new way of life, a more, as you may call it, ancestral way of life. Self-sufficient, grounded, animals, nature, all of that. But at the same time, moving up the mountain didn't restore my strength, my core strength. And I still struggled with memory issues. I still struggled to get out of bed in the morning, and I had fatigue. Like if I exerted myself a lot, I had fatigue. My body was weaker than before I got MS, and I was quite conscious of that. So I wasn't able to throw myself into off-grid life in a fully physical way. I spent 4 years on the mountain basically resting and recuperating. And I was very alone, but that loneliness felt now like my choice. The isolation felt like my choice rather than abandonment, which is what it felt like when I was living in the city, in my own country. Now I was in a foreign country, up a mountain. Well, of course I was isolated. Of course I was alone. It made sense. And that was when the pandemic happened. So that's part of my story, that I spent the pandemic up this mountain in Spain. But yeah, as I say, I wasn't fully there. I was still limited to some degree. I did improve to some degree as well. I wasn't using a wheelchair anymore, for example. So I had improved to some degree. But when I started the carnivore diet, that was when I had the biggest change. And what changed was, when I started the diet, my strength came back, and that came back within weeks. Within weeks, I felt like a full person again. I felt like I could get up out of bed in the morning and go about my day. I could do physical things without any fatigue payback. I could drive into the city and spend the day in the city and drive back again and chill out in the evening and, you know, get up the next day and carry on and do that again. It kind of pushed me over a new threshold of strength and health. And it felt really powerful because that had been missing for a number of years by that point. So I got sick in 2016, and this was 2023 when I started the diet. So it'd been a number of years, 6 or 7 years where I'd been very ill and weak, and I'd kind of dragged myself up this mountain and existed up the mountain. And then I started the diet, and I came across the diet on YouTube, and I came across it a year before I started it. One day I just decided, oh, this carnivore diet sounds kind of intriguing, I'll start it. I didn't think it would have the impact that it had. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't think it would cure my MS. I still don't know if it has cured my MS, but I don't live with thoughts of MS at all. I am a completely physically healthy person right now. And it took me a good year for that strength. It's like I didn't believe in that strength for the first year, because the thing is, there was also, of course, an emotional element to my situation. I was extremely traumatized by the experience I'd had in England, and the emotional weight of losing so much from my physical capacity to my career to my relationships was almost too much to take. And also the expectation that would determine the rest of my life, that all these doors had closed to my future, and what was left was just me and the sofa. It was no joke, it was a very, very heavy burden. It just felt merciless. And so that trust in my body, that trust in my boundaries and myself took a while to grow back. So when I had been on the mountain, I had not had strong boundaries. I was very lonely, very traumatized, and I got myself into an abusive relationship. A story not worth revisiting, but it was so destructive, and it happened because I wasn't quite there yet. I wasn't well, I wasn't strong, I didn't have boundaries, I didn't feel able to leave him because I was so scared of going back to being on my own again. I allowed the trauma bonding to happen because I was weak. And yeah, I got horribly manipulated and financially and emotionally abused. And I started the carnivore diet while I was in that relationship. So my physical strength returned, and it took a while for me to fully believe that my physical strength had returned. But more and more every day I was starting to realize, no, this is real, this is consistent. I really can clear a log pile. I really can drive for 3 hours. I really can just go about my life and work again and do all of these things that I was able to do. I had my memory and my wits about me, and I could see the relationship for what it was, but I wasn't strong enough to believe that I could be alone again. So it took me a while to get the emotional, psychological strength to break free from that relationship. And then I did. And so I would say that my healing journey has involved that as well. And also I found the strength to stop smoking a substance that I was using medicinally that I can't really name on YouTube. And that was something I'd been heavily addicted to. So I started the diet, and I had this amazing return of physical strength, and cognitive faculties returned to me, and it was amazing. But I then needed to heal further. I needed to heal enough to get myself out of the mess that I'd got myself into because I had been weak. Because chronic illness, it's more than just about the physical symptoms, it's about the impact it has on your life. And I'd got myself into a bit of a hole. It took some more time to climb out of that hole and find myself in a place where I was healthy, body, mind, and soul. And I would say that I'm now in that place. I am in a place now where I feel like a strong, healthy person. Now, that doesn't mean that I have no problems. That doesn't mean that the carnivore diet's fixed every issue in my life. I'm still working on it. But I felt like I was in, not just underwater, but in the Mariana Trench. I remember saying that in a previous video. Like, I felt like I was down in the Mariana Trench. And the carnivore diet just came and gradually pulled me back up to the surface. And now I'm on the surface. And now I'm swimming to shore. Like, that's how profoundly the carnivore diet has changed my life. I just want to kind of reflect on the different elements that it's impacted. It's impacted the physical in terms of my strength, my energy, my mobility, the lack of symptoms, the cognitive in terms of clarity, memory, emotional regulation and resilience. It's meant that I can work again. It's meant that I can form new relationships that are strong and healthy. It's given me confidence. It's given me independence, because all of those things have been taken away. And now they have returned. There is no price I could put on those things, obviously. You know, that's not having a life and then having a life. But it's also changed my understanding of health and nutrition, like, completely. I didn't used to understand how important diet was. I had followed a carbohydrate, whole food, near vegan diet. It did include fish, but it eliminated saturated fats completely. And I followed that diet for a while when I was quite sick, but it didn't make much of a difference in terms of my physical state. So I just didn't understand the importance of diet. Now I've got a completely new understanding of diet. Like, it's turned my understanding on its head. I understand now that fat is absolutely fundamental for our brain and body health, especially when you have MS. Demyelination is what you have in the brain with MS, and that is the destruction of the myelin sheathing, which is made of cholesterol. So it's made me question so much about the way the world is and the way that we live. So it's opened a whole new understanding of human existence for me and lifestyle. I am now embarking upon a homesteading lifestyle where I raise my own animals for meat, which is not something I'd considered doing. It's a whole new lifestyle, whole new path forward, which I'm really excited about. So it's changed my whole life. I can't overstate how much of an impact it has had on my life. It's literally brought my life back to me and changed it into a whole new direction. I could talk and talk and talk about this. It's a very big topic for me, but I'm trying to keep it short. So, and I want to re-emphasize this is not medical advice. I'm not saying that the carnivore diet will work for everybody who has MS like it has for me, or with a chronic illness. I hope it will. I hope it will, because that's what happened to me, and I wish for nothing less for everybody else who's struggling the way I was struggling. However, I cannot say, I'm not in a position where I can say that it will work for you. I'm just sharing my experience. It's up to each individual to decide what diet they want to follow, what medication they wish to put into their bodies. I think body sovereignty is a key thing that has come out of this health journey for me. And so I am the last person to tell anyone what to do when it comes to their bodies. But yeah, what I hope to do is share hope for people who might feel stuck and like they're running out of options. I hope it will encourage you to question and research and to listen to your body. And I'd also like to just invite you guys to comment, ask questions, or share your stories in the comments, because there's a little community that's grown around this channel, and I think that, you know, it's really wonderful for people to express their perspectives and share what they've experienced and what they've learned. That's what I want this channel to be, a place for open discussion about how to live well, how to survive in this world. Maybe, just maybe, if you feel like your body has turned against you, if you feel like your life has shut down, maybe, just maybe, it's not over. So keep fighting the good fight, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.